the required, it means that you don't actually know what you need to do in the question. And now that's where you find yourself being all over and not being able to have a strategy or a plan to say, this is what I'm going to follow. So that's where everything begins. It starts by understanding the required. And once I understand the required, I then plan my required. And then after planning my required, and I normally say that when you plan your required, you should already have in mind the final solution or where you want to go, or get to in terms of your final answer, right? So when I'm planning now, I already need to then see my response to say, this is what I'm going to then see once I'm done with everything. And then by doing that, it means that now what's left is for me to go back to the scenario and then just get the information to then get to my final plan or my final answer. So it becomes easier that way. So even if then you have one issue that is then giving you a problem, it does not really sort of like destroy your plan in a way, because you know that this is just one issue that I have, but that I know I still have to do this and this and this and that. So even if this issue I'm still failing to then do it, I'm then going to go to another issue, and then still I'll get to then the final plan that I have. But if you then don't have a plan, once you then encounter a problem, that's where you start being all over. And now you just start, writing and all those things. And some of those things you won't really get marks for them. So we're going to touch on that in terms of how you need to go through the required, and also how you then need to plan your required. Anyone else? Anyone else who had any issues, so that we can also touch on those issues when we are going through the question? Benis? Guys,
Um,
yeah, thanks. Go for it.
um, all right. Let me be honest.
Yeah,
I didn't do the question, so
okay.
I'm currently doing my articles, so I'm juggling between school and work. But
Okay.
then that's not an excuse. So my plan was that after this discussion, obviously, then during the weekend, I write the question and I come back to this discussion again and see if I understood everything. So that's how I'm planning on doing it. Otherwise, I didn't have the time to do it because after yesterday's class, I slept and I just came back from the office at 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're gonna, so, and yeah, thanks for that. We're gonna address that as well, right? In terms of time management and how you need to plan your things. Um, because it's hard. I know working and then having to do CTA, it's hard, but you just need to then be honest with yourself and make sure that you plan accordingly, and try to get those hours to then do the question, because you want to then do this and then you are done. You don't want to be repeating again next year, because you know how CTA is. It's a juggle, it's a problem. So you want to then make sure that I put all the efforts now, so that I die once if I'm dying, right? And then next year I know that everything is going to be fine. So you just need to then make sure that you then manage your time, because now sometimes it becomes a problem coming here, and we have to do a question, you don't understand some of the things, and then you have issues with some of the things, and you have to then go back again to the question, meaning now you're putting more time. And if maybe you did it, if you had done the question, we're going to come here and then we do it, and then we do the solution, and then when you go back, you then just make sure that you then just finalize all those things that you didn't understand. But it's fine, we're still going to go through, we're going to go through the question. And so you guys, then also I would like you to just contribute when we're going through it. And if you have any questions, you can stop me at any given time, and we can then address those questions. So I'm going to share my screen, if I can just get confirmation if you guys can see my screen.
Hi, sir. I'm sorry for
Yes,
disturbing.
come through.
Um, Yeah, I have a problem with getting the documents that did you post the example that we did yesterday because I couldn't find the document anywhere else.
So the example of standard posting.
Um, yes.
Okay, now I think we can discuss that after. I think that the team will have to post the notes. So I'll
Oh,
just confirm with the team, and then if they haven't, then they'll just post then the example.
okay, thank you.
All right, sharp. So yeah, we can start, right. So we have a lot of things to then deal with. Yesterday already we started with our ABC, so that is then the first question that is here. So I'm hoping that at least that question we're gonna be is gonna go a lot faster, because we then dealt with the steps yesterday to say these are the steps that you then follow when you are then dealing with ABC. But what's important here, and also to touch in terms of exam technique, right? Because then doing a question is not all about the technical knowledge that you have. It has to do with also the exam technique, right? And then the exam technique, the first thing that you then will need to do will then be to understand your required as your starting point. So you're going to go through the question and we're going to go through the question together, but you then need to understand the required as well, because if you then don't understand the required, it becomes a problem. Like I said, you then end up being all over, not really knowing where to go or what you then need to do, right? And understanding the required, it's actually easy because you just need to break down everything. So you need to then break down. So even when I'm reading my required, I don't have to then just read everything like this and try to then contextualize it. But I need to first break it down so that I know exactly what I am required to do. After then getting the required, I then need to plan, right? And then in terms of planning, like I said, you then need to see your final solution to say, this is where I want to go, right? Because I have the required. Yes, I don't have the information, but I know that this required is expecting me to then have this and this and this and this and that. And then that then becomes your plan to say, I know that when I then go back to the information to say, I'm going to write now, I know that I have to then touch on all these points that I have done, I've put down to say this is my plan. So you then need to do that. So you need to understand the required, and you need to make sure that you then plan your required. You then need to make sure that you manage your time, right? So time management again is very important. And I normally say that you need to get to all the questions. So that's the first thing that you then need to do. Because I see a lot of people then writing one question and then they spend more time there and they don't get to say the last two questions. And then in each and every question, I always say that there's always gonna be easy marks that you have to get, right? So there's always gonna be around 50%, which is easy marks. You don't even have to even think about it. It's just a matter of saying, if I have a proper plan, I'm gonna get those marks, because I know that if I have to calculate contribution, I know the formula of contribution is that I have to get my sales, I have to get my variable per unit, and then I have to get my contribution. So I know that this is my plan. So even when I'm going back to then the information, I just then go and look, where's my sales per unit? And then I put there, and then I get a mark for that, right? So for each and every question that you then do or you then write, there's always those easy marks. So I would want you guys to then plan your time accordingly so that you can then get to all the questions. And I'm not saying finish all of them, right? So obviously the ideal situation would then be I need to finish all of them. But I know sometimes it happens that you get stuck on one question and then now you don't have the time to finish everything. But I want you to then get to all the questions. So all the required that are there, I want you to then say, I'm then going to write all the required that are there.
They say everything can be heavy.
Sorry, can you mute? Thank you. So yeah, so it means that you have to then get to all the required. So that's another exam technique that you then need to deal with. The other one is just a matter of breaking down the information. So if I'm having all this information, I know I need to read this information in a critical way, right? So critical reading is very much important, and you train that. So it's not just a matter of saying I'm going to then be reading this and I will understand, right? So you train critical reading to say that if I'm reading and I'm also asking myself questions to say, what do they actually mean when they're telling me this? And how does this affect, say, my sales? How does it affect my cost of sales, right? So when I'm reading that and I'm questioning myself, it means that I then can start, just understanding in terms of what I then need to do when it comes to the information that I'm given. So breaking down the information and reading the information in a critical way, in a way that you understand, will also then help you a lot, because now it becomes much easier. So we are then going to then do this question, and we're going to then first do A, which is ABC. I'll skip B for now, and then we'll go to C, because I think C as well was a bit challenging. So I want to then touch on C, and then we'll do D, and then if time permits, we'll then go and we'll come back to B. So I'm going to start with my required, right? So the first required, then they were asking me this. So they're saying calculate. So I know I have to then do calculations. So that's the first thing that I then need to understand, right? So calculate the budgeted gross, or recalculate rather. So if they're saying recalculate, it means there was something that was calculated there before. So I then need to recalculate it, right? So recalculate the budgeted gross profit margin. And this is what I'm doing. I'm recalculating the gross profit margin. What is the gross profit margin? It's my sales minus my cost of sales, right? Then I get what? I get my gross profit. But now here they need what? A percentage, because they want the gross profit margin, meaning that I then need to then determine to say, what is then my gross profit margin, which is now a what? A percentage. So my final solution has to have this as a percentage, because if I then just stop here, when I don't go and then do my gross profit margin, I then lose this mark, right? And this mark, most of the time, it's not about whether you have the accurate amount or not, but it's all about whether you have this as the final solution, because that's what we asked you, right? So you then get this mark. So if I then don't understand when I'm reading, and then I just read this is a gross profit, I'm going to then stop my answer here, and I lose that one mark. Already that's 1/11, right? Which is a lot in terms of percentage, right? More than 10%. So I then need to understand to say, all right, this is how I calculate my gross profit, and then this then becomes my gross profit margin. So I need to take my sales, I need to take my cost of sales, and then I then need to come to my gross profit. And then I then need to then determine my gross profit margin. All right, sharp. Then of each of the, of each of Mona, L, and Q Africa products. So now I know that I have two products that I need to then calculate that gross profit margin, right? So the first one that they gave me, let's call it M, product M, and then the second one will then be product C. So I then need to calculate for both of them. So I don't want you guys then to say, I'm calculating the gross profit margin, and then you just do one product, because that's what you, that was not the required. So the required wants you to then do the gross profit margin for both products, product M and product C, for financial year 2023, right? So they gave me the financial year 2023. So I'm gonna go to the assumption now, but I've broken down my required into 5 components now. The first thing that I need to do is to recalculate. And what do I have to recalculate? I have to recalculate my gross profit margin. And what is my gross profit margin? My gross profit margin is my sales minus cost of sales, get my gross profit, and then I get my gross profit margin, meaning this is what I then need to follow. Then for what? I'm then going to then do this for 2 products. So I'm gonna get this for product M, and then I'm gonna do the same thing for product C. So I have to then say, at the end of my final solution, I need to then see this, the separation of M and the separation of C, and then the sales of M and the sales of C, right? So I need to then see this separated. And now we're talking about presentation here, right? So I need to then separate my two products and not be all over. And then they gave me the year, which is then, they gave me the year, which is 2023. So that's fine. And then there are now assumptions. So I don't stop there. I have to read everything. So the assumption is that indirect manufacturing overheads are allocated to products based on the new allocation basis suggested by the board. So now I know that when I'm reading, there's a new allocation basis that is there, right? And this was then the ABC. So you'll see when you go through it, it was then the ABC. So yesterday when we were talking, we said when you are then calculating a product or a product cost, you then take the sales, the variable, and then also allocate then the overheads to get to the total cost of the product, right? So that's what you need to do. So ABC will then be then the last part of my solution. So I then have sales, I have cost of sales, meaning already I know that this cost of sales is again going to then be divided into direct material. It's going to then be divided into direct labor, and I have to then allocate again my overheads, right? So I just don't do overheads only because now you're losing these marks of the direct material and direct labor. Same as this, that's then going to then apply, right? How do I take this thing out here? That's the same thing that's gonna then apply. So with ABC, we touched on it, and we say, okay, let me put it here. And then we say that what is then ABC? So with ABC, I know that there were 4 steps that we then discussed. So I know that I need to then firstly have my overhead costs, the ones that I then need to allocate. And then what do I then do? I know that I have to now, the first step was for me getting activities. And remember the rental example that we did to say that you have the bedroom, you have electricity, you have the TV, right? So I have to get the activities. And those activities, I then need to determine their total cost. So each and every activity has to then have what? Has to have a total cost as well. Then I need to determine the cost driver, right, for each and every activity. Then after doing that, I will then be able to then allocate the overheads. So already I know that this is what I'm going to do. So even when I'm going back to the scenario, I'm going to then look at my activity. I will then look at where is the cost of the activity. I will then look to say in each and every activity, where is the cost driver? And then I will then use that cost driver to then allocate the products or allocate the overheads to the 2 products that I then have. Then I can calculate my gross profit margin. So that's one thing that I then needed to do. Then CB does not enter into the long-term supply agreement with NF. So when you see there, if you then went through the question, you'll see that there's another agreement. So and then we're going to touch on that agreement when we then go to number C. So they're saying that it does not apply here. So I don't have to look at then this last part, which is the long-term agreement. So I then stop here, right? When I'm then dealing with A. So you are then done with your first required. Then we go to the second required. So the second required then says critically comment, right, on and compare. So I'm doing 2 things here. I'm going to then comment, right? And then I'm going to then compare as well. So these are 2 things that I'm going to then do. So I need to comment and I need to compare. So those are 2 action words that I then need to do. So I'm then going to then note that. So I have to compare and I have to then comment. And I have to do this in a critical way, meaning I have to then wear my critical hat when I'm going through then those things that I have to compare or comment on. I then need to make sure that I'm commenting in a critical way, right? So I need to first understand, and by understanding and critically reviewing something or commenting on something, it just means that if I then have sales, so it means that if I then have sales and they say critically comment on sales, what you then need to do here. So say I have sales, let me put it, say I have sales, and then they say critically comment on the sales. So what they expect you to do, they're expecting you to say, instead of looking at the sale amount in total, so the sale amount will then be, say, 10,000. So instead of looking at 10,000 in total, let me break down my sale. And if I'm breaking down my sale, I then get what? I know this is made up of the price, and then I then have to have the units, right, that are there. So I then need to then break down this sale. So by critically reviewing or critically commenting, it means that I then need to take my sale, I then need to break down my sale, and then if I have the price and I can go further and break the price, I need to break down the price. If I then have the units and I have to break down the units further, I then break down the units further. That will then give me a lot of things to then discuss on. Because a lot of people will then just comment on the total amount. And then you find that for sales only, you have around 5 marks that you can get. But because you are not willing to then break down this information, and it's all about breaking down, because you're not willing to break down this information, you then lose out on those marks. So if I'm then wearing my critical head, I then need to then break down my sales, my price, and I know that my price is what I'm going to charge, right? And then my quantity or my units, that's what my customers that I'm going to get. And those two things are different, right? Because my unit will then show my growth to say that, okay, it means I sold 10 in this financial year. The next financial year, I sold 20. The other financial year, I sold 50. So what does that say? It says that in terms of actual growth or actual market that I'm getting more people. But my price then will reflect the amount that I'm charging on these units, right? And then I can wake up tomorrow and say, I'm going to add a margin of 100, right? And then year one, I got 10,000 people with, say, 10 rents. Then and then my sale then becomes 100,000 on my total sales. Then year two, I then wake up and say, I'm going to increase my price by 100%. So that's 20. But I lose out on the market share, meaning I get less people because now they're reacting to the price because it is increasing. But because I got less people and I have charged them more, I end up getting a sale in terms of the total sale, which is more than the previous period. So if you then go and look at it like that, you will think that my company is really growing in terms of the quantity. But it's not really growing in terms of the quantity because now I have fewer people buying, just that my price is high. So that's why you then need to break down and then be able to then comment on that. So it means that I need to then comment critically and then compare, meaning that I have to then compare these sales with something else, right? With the sales of another product, let's put it that way. And then I then again need to compare the price of this with the price of the other product and the unit of this with the other one. So I break down both of them and then I can then comment firstly on this alone, right? On this product alone. And then I can also comment on this product alone. Then I can compare as well then my products. Hence, if you then even go to the solution, you'll see that this question had a lot of marks that you can then get. But we see people or candidates, even though there are a lot of marks, they don't really capitalize on that. And it's because I'm not really planning my required, or I'm not breaking down my required in a way that I know that I'm going to then get a lot of things. So even if I then say, I'm just going to have 1 point for total sales, 1 point for total sales, one for this, one for this, one for this, one for this, one for comparing, one for comparing, I know that I'm on 7 or 8 by just doing that. And when I go then to the scenario, I know what I'm actually looking for. So it's all about you breaking down the scenario and the required. So I'm going to comment and compare the components of the revised gross profit margin. So again, the gross profit margin that I have here, and they're saying the components, meaning that what goes into gross profit margin, we already know. We have the sales, we have direct cost, and then we have gross profit margin. The sales will then be divided, like I said, to the price, to the quantity. The cost will then be divided to the direct material, direct labor, or overheads. The overheads will then be divided to different activities that are there as well. So already you can see you have a lot of things to then talk about, right? Because if I then just also go to the overheads only, we say we're going to divide them into activities. I have a lot of activities that I need to touch on if I then break down what makes up the component of the overhead. So when you come here, you can then say, I don't have a lot of things to then touch on or talk or comment on, because I'll then say you didn't plan your question. Because if you had planned your question properly, you will see before you even go to the scenario to say, I already have my answers. And I just need to then just go to the scenario and then make sure that I get then the right wording to then put on the plan that I have. All right. Then that's number B. I think someone needs to mute their mic. All right, thanks. So C then talks to the estimate, and this one was this one. If you had a plan also, and I think that's what you need to do with costing. If you break down your required, it starts there. If you break down your required and you have a plan, and then you then make sure that when you go there, you know what you need to write and what your final solution needs to look like. It becomes very much easy, right? So number C then says estimate, right? So I'm dealing with estimate. Estimate the impact. And what is impact? Impact, it means that there's something that is coming in, which is then gonna disrupt what was there and is gonna cause sort of like an impact, right? So I then need to then make sure that if I'm then calculating this impact, whether it's an impact on cost, on profit, on revenue, it means that once then I have say this product coming in, I'm then going to get additional revenue from it. And then I might need also to then stop selling some of the things that I'm selling, because maybe the capacity of doing everything together I won't have, right? So what will then be the impact of this agreement coming in? What is it that gonna cost? What will then be the cost and effect of then this new agreement, right? So I'm being told to calculate the impact of entering into the long-term supply agreement with MAF. So there's an agreement. We're gonna go to the agreement. So what is then the impact on? The impact is on CB's profitability, right? So CB profitability. And then what is profit? Profitability. It's my sales minus all my cost of sales, and then minus any expense that I have, then I get to my profit, right? So this is my profit. So I'm then saying, I'm getting this agreement, like, and I already have something. I already have my profit here. So by me then getting this new agreement, what will then be the impact on this profit? Meaning that if my sales includes the two products that I'm selling, which is product M and product C, if then the agreement is saying there must be a new product, so let's call it product D, and it's coming in, what will then be the impact on this profit that I already have as a result of this coming through? And then now I know that, okay, I'm gonna go and read it. Am I taking everything of D, and then I don't have to change anything of M and C? Because if that's then the case, it means this profit still remains, right? Because I'm not changing anything when it comes to M and C. And I'm just gonna add the profit of D. And then when I add the profit of D and the profit that I already have, that will then be the new profit that I'm gonna get. However, sometimes it's not like that. So it's not easy as that. It means if I'm then taking D, I might need to drop M or C, or I might need to reduce the production of M and C. And that's where relevant costing come into play. Because now if I then have this profit already, which is M and C, and then you are then saying, say I'm producing 10 of M, 10 units of M, and then you are then saying, we are now going to then take 5 of D, but you need to then let go of 5 of M so that you can then remain with only 5 of M. So this means that the first impact is that on this profit, I need to then take out the 5 that I'm then going to then not produce anymore. So the 5 that I was willing to sell, which led to my profit, I'm now going to then say, okay, I'm then going to take this out because I'm no longer going to get it because of the introduction of D. However, when I'm then taking this 5 out, because fixed costs and costs that are not relevant, I will already incur them, or the cost that I will have already incurred, or fixed costs that I'm still going to incur regardless of whether I drop the 5 or what. I won't then take them into account when I'm calculating the 5 that I'm dropping, meaning I'll only then calculate the contribution, because the contribution will then give me the variable component of M, meaning that if I had to put materials which are directly linked to M, I'm not going to then have that expense of material. If I had the expense of labor, I'm not going to then have the expense of labor as well, right? So, and then the sale, if I was going to sell the 5, I'm not going to then sell the 5, meaning the impact will then be this 5 that I'm no longer producing. I then need to determine how much I was going to then get. What was the contribution of that 5, so that I know that I'm now losing, right? So I'm now losing this contribution. So it means that I'm going to then have my contribution that I'm losing. I then need to calculate it because I had taken it into account when, say, I was doing my budget here. But now, because of the introduction of then this D, I'm now not going to then have it, meaning I'm going to lose it. So I then need to calculate the contribution, and then I'm going to say that my profit was this, and the impact of that will then be me losing this contribution on the profit. That's then the impact on profitability. However, okay, I think someone needs to mute again. So, however, if I'm then bringing in D5, D5 is also going to have an impact on my profit. And the impact here on my profit will then be what? Will then be all the cost that I'm now going to then incur. So all the sale that I'm going to do and all the costs that are going to then be relevant to this decision. So all the costs that I'm now going to incur as a result of bringing in D5. So those are the costs that are relevant because I'm going to now incur additional cost as a result of bringing in D5. And then I'm going to get additional sale as a result of bringing in D5 because I'm either going to then sell those D5, right? So then it means that my impact will then be what I've lost versus what I'm now gaining. And then this becomes then my impact. So this becomes my impact. And this then becomes your face value, right, of the plan. So we're still going to go to the agreement. But now I then need to determine what is my contribution. I need to break this down. My contribution is my sale minus my variable cost per unit, right? My sales per unit minus variable cost per unit. Then I need to then calculate it. So this is my contribution, sales per unit minus the variable cost per unit. And then I know I need to multiply that with the quantity that I was then going to then sell, right? To then give me the total amount. So I can already break this down already. And you can't tell me that there's no way that you can get you can get zero from this question, because you can then come and say, what is then my sale of the 5 M product that I'm then losing, and you know the sales per unit. I can then say what is my variable, and then I know my variable per unit, then I can get my contribution. And then you can't tell me that you can't get more marks, because if I'm bringing in something, or it means that in that agreement they must state the sales that I'm going to get on that new agreement. So that then becomes the new sale that I'm going to then get, which is going to impact my profit. So that then you can then take into account the cost that I'm going to then incur by bringing this D5. I'm going to then incur those costs, meaning that I didn't have this cost before in my original budget, which is then here. So that becomes an impact as well. So I then need to include that. Then I determine the difference between what I'm going to then lose as a result of this and what I'm going to then gain. And I calculate the difference. And this is the impact. And this, it means that even if you're not done, I want you to then answer the question, and then you say, okay, maybe I then calculated this, but I'm not done. And then I calculated this and I'm not done. Let me just get the difference and then get my impact, because this is another mark. And we see people losing this mark, and it's because you didn't write and didn't answer the question. And sometimes when we have marks like this for logical argument, we don't really give you, because although you have done this part and done this part, the question asks you to determine the impact thereof. And impact means that I then need to take two things and then add them or minus them to then see what then the impact that they're having in my profit. So I will then need to add this or minus this from this and get the impact. This is another mark, and this becomes a calculation mark. So meaning you don't have to have it, you don't have to have the accurate amount of the impact, but you then just have to then have, you know, your impact there, and then you get the mark. And this has nothing to do with the technicality. This has everything to do with the exam technique, to say that am I planning my things in a way that I should plan and maximize on the marks that I need to get. But if you don't understand your required and you don't plan your required, you won't know that I have one mark just to then determine to say my impact on the profitability is, and I have this. Already I have a simple mark that I don't even need to think about it, because it's just a matter of a calculation that I can add the two and get my impact. So I get this mark. But because we're not, when we do our feedback, we're not identifying those exam technique and those marks that we need to get to improve. We then end up going from one test to another test, losing the important marks or those simple marks that we then need to get. And we want to then go for the difficult marks. And going for the difficult marks, yes, you have to, but it will take more time as well. But then if I then just get this out of the way, I know that already an easy mark that I didn't even need to think about or even need to, think in a critical manner or all that. I just needed to break down my requirement, and then I get my required. So that's something that you then need to do. And you see how everything fits in when we now go and then go through the agreement. All right. Then we have number D. So number D then states that discuss the key factors. So I'm discussing here, right? So I'm discussing my key factor, and we need to discuss. They didn't say state, right? So I then need to discuss to say, why am I saying this? Because of this and this and this and that, right? And then we'll then give you a mark. And you don't have to write long paragraphs, right? So sometimes I see people writing long paragraphs, and then you read the paragraph, you still give one mark. And I'm like, okay, you could have then be precise and then still put in your point and not write paragraphs, because now if you write paragraphs, it means you're not managing your time correctly, and you can go straight to the point and be precise and still get the mark. So I don't want you to then write long paragraphs, and I'm going to show you how you then need to make sure that you save time here, because a lot of people then try to then waste time. And what candidates do, they will skip this question because maybe it's difficult in terms of the calculation. They will rush the discussion because now they're like, okay, the discussion I can discuss. So now, say we have these two questions only, which is C and D. Then you skip this one, you go here because you feel like discussing key factors. I know I can think about additional considerations and all those things. But when you come here, you start discussing, you start writing long paragraphs, and you were supposed to only spend only 7 minutes here. You end up spending 20 minutes here because you're comfortable with the question and it's additional consideration that you need to get. You end up spending 20 minutes here. So meaning you have spent more than 100% of the time that you needed to spend here, because you skipped the first one and you came here because it was easy for you to do. And then you come and you spend a lot of time here. And when you spend a lot of time here with discussion questions, what candidates normally do, they write paragraphs. They want to show that I'm explaining, I know these things I'm explaining. And then those paragraphs, you write for 2 minutes, I still give you 1 mark for the paragraph that you just wrote. And then you have wasted time. You come back here, we tell you there's 30 minutes remaining. You have started, you start panicking, you don't know what you do, and then now you're all over. You just read, you don't break down, you don't plan, you don't put in time to plan your required, right? You then just jump straight into the question. You lose most of the marks that you're supposed to get, right? So I'm not saying you must not skip a question and go to another question, but I'm saying when you skip a question and go to another question, be mindful of the time, right? Because most of the times when you do that is because we are comfortable with the other question, and that's when we start wasting more and more time. So I'm then saying be mindful of the time, especially with discussion questions. Make sure that when you are discussing, you then do what? You make sure that you are being precise and then you are going straight into detail, but you are giving me, you are actually answering the question. So you don't have to write long paragraphs, and I'm going to show you how you then need to do that. Then I've spent time, and you see, I'm spending a lot of time on the required because I want you guys also to spend time on breaking down the required. Because now, after breaking down the required, it becomes easy for me to answer the question because I know what I then need to do, right? So even when I'm reading something, I know already that if I'm answering required A, I'm then going to say, if I'm reading something and I know it's going to come here under required B, I already know that, oh, this, I'm going to discuss it under required B. Why? Because I've already broken down my required as well, and I know what I then am needed to do. So if you don't do this, you write A, you go back, you have to reread the question, you see some points going to B, and that's where you guys waste time as well. So when you're then doing a feedback and you're checking time management, those are then some of the things that you then need to check to say, where am I really wasting my time? Where can I then make sure that I save time, right? Where are my strong points? Where should I save time? What should I then do? And then that's then proper feedback. And that has to do with exam techniques. So that's why it's very much important to then understand then the exam technique. So this is then part one of exam technique. And then part two will then be when I'm going through the scenario, and then I'm able to also break down the scenario when I'm reading it so that I know what will then, what would be the things that I'm going to use answering the plan that I already have. Any questions on the required? Is there something that it is not making sense now? So I know we haven't went through the scenario, but we just then breaking down the required as is, as the way it is, and we know the expectation. So when you're reading the required, is there someone who does not know what is then expected of them or what they need to do? So we are all good. And there was a lady who asked me about, yeah. There was a lady who asked me about, yeah.
No, sorry. Continue, please. Sorry for disturbing.
Yeah, no, I was saying there was someone who asked me about C, that they didn't understand what they really needed to do. So I just wanted to hear from them before we even go to the question to say, did they understand in terms of what we then need to do here?
I wanted to ask you, may you please repeat C? I think when now going back to, I think I still do not a little bit understand.
Okay.
Okay,
Sure.
Manda,
Yes.
I want to add to what my colleague said. Ne?
Sure.
Why am I saying colleague anyway? Okay. You spoke about bringing in a new product. I think you said
Sure.
product D, ne?
Sure.
So what's going to guide us that we have to bring in product D?
Okay. Yeah. And maybe so we're going to then read there. So then I was just expanding, but it means that in terms of, so when you read, you're gonna see that there's a new product that comes through and all those things. So you guys have reading time. So already you know that there's in this agreement, there's this that is gonna come through. So I was just doing it without going through the scenario. But say you didn't have the scenario, it's fine. And then you then needed to determine your profitability. So what you then needed to think about here is to say, I need to bring an impact. So of entering in a long-term supply agreement, right? Meaning that this agreement will then have either the cost or income that are going to then be there, which I didn't take into account in my normal profit or my normal budget that I was doing. So I then need to then start thinking about when this agreement then comes, how will it affect the profit that I have? And I know that my profit is then made up of my sales minus the expenses. So let's just summarize it to get to the profit. So I will then have my profit, and I'm being told about the impact of this agreement that I don't know of, and I know that this agreement is going to come with whatever costs or revenue that I wouldn't have taken them into account here. So it means that I already know that it means that whatever is new that is being brought by this agreement will then have an impact on the profit that I already have. And this agreement, whatever is new, it might then require me to forego or not have some of the sales that I already have in my profit. So I need to be mindful of that to say already, it means that those things also will then, it will then cause an impact to say some of the things that I had here, I'm not going to have anymore. So my starting point is what I have already. Now this new agreement is coming with this new cost, which are going to then add on my profit. So that's an impact. However, I don't know yet, but I know that I might then, if I'm required to then say some of the things that I had in my initial budget, I don't have to have them anymore. Those also are going to then have an impact on my profit. So I have to then take those into account. So that's what you need to think about this.
So basically, this is a trigger of relevant costing.
Exactly, 100%.
So we're only going to talk about the impact of relevant costing if we consider what they're actually proposing
100%.
to us.
Yes,
Okay,
100%.
thank you very much.
Sure.
Sorry, sir. And then now in terms of answering number C, because it says estimate the impact, am I expected to maybe break down all of the components, indicating what impact each component has? For instance, to say sales are going to be boosted, and then the impact as per your structure that you had shown here earlier on, or am I expected to do the whole calculation up until my profit and then state the impact afterwards?
So it means the impact is on the profit, right? So if the impact is on the profit, I would expect you to see the impact on the profit, meaning that if I then say, so if I then say, let me just open a Word or something here, or Excel. So if I then say I had, and we're still gonna go, so we're still gonna go to the question, but I'm just then showing you because these questions normally come, so that are how you need to think about them. So if I then had a budgeted profit, say I had a budgeted profit already of 500, right? So this is what I normally do. I have my budgeted profit, it's fine. Then I now have to come to a new agreement that I have to now enter. And we don't know now what is in this agreement, right? So we're gonna see this when we go through the question. But I'm saying that, okay, so this agreement that is gonna have, because they're saying that I must now calculate the impact that this agreement will have on my profit, which I already have. So now I'm thinking about it to say, okay, so this agreement means I might then have more sales, right? Based on this agreement, I might have more expenses that are, because the impacts on the profit and the components of profits are sales and are expense and your cost. So I might need to have more of this. So it means that if the agreement is saying, oh, we're gonna sell 50 units more, which is gonna give us 50 rents. So we're selling 1 unit, one rent per unit. It means that my impact will then be more sales, and then expenses here. If we're incurring more expenses that we are incurring that are relevant, right? So these are going to then be as a result of this agreement, and their new expenses, so they're relevant, that I'm going to incur. So let's say I'm going to incur 30 rents. So my impact will then be on this profit, the profit that I then had, and then I add this, and I add the minus, I get this. This becomes the impact. However, it can't be this easy, right? So the agreements normally will have to forego or then have to lose some of the products that we had sold here. So if I then had a sale of my product of, say it was 200, and then I'm saying based on this agreement, the sale that I'm now going to then have, I'm going to sell only half of the normal sale that I would have budgeted, meaning that I'm going to lose out on the 100. It now means that in terms of my sale, that 100 I'm going to then lose out on. So I have to take it as an impact as well. And then this sale will then be what I'm going to lose from this agreement. And then again, it means that if I'm losing that sale or I'm no longer producing that product, I have other costs such as variable costs that I'm also going to then now not incur anymore because I won't be able to then produce the full. I'm going to produce only 50%. But now here, it's going to then be relevant costing only because some of the fixed costs that are here that will then result into the profit are not relevant because I'm going to then incur them irregardless of the new agreement. But then some of the sales and the variable cost that now I won't be selling. So let's say I was selling 50 to give me 200, and they're saying no, you will only produce 25 because of the new agreement. It means that the 25 that I would have taken into account in the profit, I now need to then take it out here. But when I'm taking it out, it's going to be the sale that I had planned minus the production costs that were there, but those that are variable because the fixed ones are not going to then be relevant to the decision. Happiness.
Yes, happiness. Thank you, sir.
All right, sure. So let's get to the question now. All right, so the first one is ABC, and then we had said that. So let's read. So I'm gonna read ABC, and then I'm not gonna, because we were told not to come to CB, right? So I'm not gonna come to CB now. So let's just start with ABC. So I'm told that you are a management accountant at Coffee Bean. So yes, coffee lovers, this was a good one for you guys. Né? So you are a management accountant at Coffee Bean, right? So this is based in Cape Town, and then the coffee roasting process transforms the physical and chemical properties of green coffee beans into flavorful roasted products. The roasting process produces the flavor and aroma of coffee craved by coffee drinkers throughout the world. CB imports green coffee beans from Jamaica, Colombia. So we know that we are importing here. And I mean, so you know the impact that is going to come as a result of importing. And then we package them for resale. CB has 12 different coffee blends, which are sold to restaurant, coffee shops, and garment shops. So they give us then the background information so that we can then just understand the context. The coffee roasting process commences with the selection and screening of green coffee, right? So that's what happens. We then select and screen the green coffee that we are importing in these countries. These beans are then transferred to coffee roasting equipment. So we're going to select, screen, and then transfer to the coffee roasting equipment where they are heated for about 15 to 30 minutes at different or varying temperatures. CB does not add any other raw materials. So that's good, right? Because it means that if there's a lot of materials that I need to think about, again, I have to be worrying about all that. So now I just have to worry about the coffee beans being the only materials that are there. So CB does not add any other raw materials apart from the green beans to the process, right? So we don't add anything else. Then at the end of the roasting process, the coffee beans are then cooled, then packaged into either 500 or 1 kg. And we spoke about measurement yesterday. So this becomes very much important to say that when I sell my coffee, I'm selling that the coffee beans pegged either 500 grams or 1 kg, right? So that becomes very much important because my output is like that. So my output, I'm selling it 1 kg or 500 grams. All right. Then the financial director of CB recently presented the draft budget for the financial year end 2023. So we have the budget, right? So good. The budget has a profit. So again, that's what I was telling you. We have the profit from our budget, or the gross profit rather. And if something comes, it will impact on this profit. All right. So yes, ending, and the board has to review and approve. So the directors debated the forecast gross profit margins of two products, product M and product C, right? So with two products, product M and then product C. Sure. So we have those two products. So they were debating on the gross profit margins of the two products. So number one, the budgeted production and sales of the two products M and C are as follows. So M and C products are manufactured exclusively in one coffee roasting machine. So it means that that machine that I'm then using and adding my beans, I'm gonna manufacture both my products, right? So I need one machine. So now I'm starting to think to say, all right, I have this one machine, I have the overhead cost of this one machine, and then I need to cost two products, meaning that in these costs, I then need to have a measurement that I'm going to use to then separate this overhead cost of this machine so that I can then have the cost for M and the cost for C. So already I'm starting to think in that way. Am I going to use machine hours? Am I gonna use the labor that is there that we need for Mona or for C, or I'm gonna use activity-based costing where I'm just going to divide into different activities, check my inspection, how then do I deal with my inspection, and then all those things, right? So I'm starting to then think about that. So this machine is called RE01 machine. The RE01 machine is not used to manufacture any other product. That's very good. I'm not worried about then allocating this overhead cost of the machine to another product. So I'm worried only about these two products. So that's fine. Then M is sold in 1 kg packs. Very important again. This is sold in 1 kg, which is then M. And C is sold in 500 kgs. So again, this becomes very much important because these are my measures and this is what I'm selling this amount at. Meaning that if I'm then selling at 1 kg, then my units, if I've sold 200 units of M, it means I've sold 200 kgs of coffee beans of M, right? So it means that. So 500 units multiplied by the 1 kg pack, which is gonna be 500 kg that I've sold, if I'm then translating that into units. Then I'm told that the budget for the production and the sale is then down here with the notes. All right. So I'm having my budget. I have my sales. So good. So they've separated my budget. I can see between M and C. I have my sales. Then that's good. So this is my total sale. It means that I can determine I have to determine my units and my price, because I said that if it's sale, it has to then be divided into what? Into the price and the unit, right? So the price, the unit. So I need to then also be able, when I read through this information, to say what is making up my price, what is making up my unit. I'm breaking down this amount and not just thinking it as 24. Because if you think if you then think about it as 24 million, it's not going to help you at all. It's just a number. But think about it as what will be then my price, or what will then be my quantity that I've sold. And then that's you breaking down now this 24, same as this. Then I have raw materials. So I have the notes. I'm going to go to the note. I have raw material that they gave me, which is 1.2. That's fine. So this raw material, I know this is direct, right? Because raw materials, I can then trace them to M, and I can also trace the raw materials to C. So these are my direct labor. So I'm not really worried about this cost, right? I'm just worried about what makes up then these raw materials, right? What then is my price? What is then also my quantity or my kgs that I have here? And I'm going to see that when I go to then note 1.2. Then I have direct labor, same direct. Then I have quality control. Now I'm starting to think, quality control, can I really trace it directly? And I'm thinking that, okay, we'll see when I then go through it. Packaging cost, yes, I know I can package. I know that I've spent this amount in terms of packaging, and I've spent this in terms of packaging as well, right? Indirect overheads, already I know I have to then allocate these overheads between the different activities there, right? And then I have my gross profit. All right. Then after getting my gross profit, I then have my gross profit margin here. So if someone can come in, what does this tell me? If I'm having my gross profit here, what does it tell me about the system that I'm using?
They are likely using absorption costing system.
Come again?
They are using an absorption costing system.
Exactly, because now if it means that I still have then what? My fixed overheads here as well. So they're likely to use gross profit absorption. Now, yesterday I said, if I have manufacturing overhead, I have fixed and I have variable. And then they have to tell you, and you have to know that these manufacturing overheads are fixed and variable. However, another aspect can come. They can just put manufacturing overheads here and they put contribution here. It means that I then need to know that those manufacturing overheads that are there are only variable and not fixed. So even though they didn't state that variable, but because I have contribution here, that should then tell me that those are only variable, right? So that is one way where they can then just trick you in terms of then telling you if this is then total manufacturing overheads or is then already separated into the variable component. Then I have my gross profit margin, which I know how to calculate it. I then take my gross profit and then my sale as well to then get my gross profit margin. Then per pack. Per pack, I know I sell this in 1 kg packs. And I know I sell this in 500 gram packs. So it means that for 1 kg, I'm then going to then sell this at 120. And then this becomes my sale, and then this then becomes my gross profit per pack, right? So per unit. So if 1 unit is 1 pack, so it means that this is then my sales amount per unit. So already, if I'm then going to my plan in my required, and I know I have to then calculate either the contribution or I have to use sales per unit. The sales per unit already for M and the sales per unit for C are already given. So it's just a matter of taking this and putting it into my answer. So I know that because I did my plan, and in most of my required, I'm saying that there's somewhere I'm going to use my sales, or I'm going to compare my price and all those. I now flag them to say these are some of the things that I'm going to discuss. All right, then we have cost of sales, then we have gross profit. Then let's go to 1.1. So 1.1 tells us that the budgeted sales of Mona and C products are summarized below. So the sales volume per kg, and I know I sell 1 kg as a pack. So it means that my units per kg are 200. So that's fine, right? So it's 200 packs. I sold 200 packs, which is 200 1 kg as well, which will then give me 200,000 kg, same as this one. But this one is 500, remember. Then here, I know that now I sold the sale, the volume, again, number of packs, which is then 200. So that's fine. And then here, the number of packs becomes what? Becomes then the 63984. Then the sale again per pack then becomes what? And remember with the volume. So this is in kg. So if this is in kg, remember we then sell in 500 grams. Hence, you then see this then in terms of the volume doubling here, because it means that if this is the kg, it means, and we sell in 500 grams, then this becomes then the number of volumes that we then sold, or the number of packs rather that we sold. Then the sale per pack, this becomes 120, and then the sale per pack here becomes what? Becomes 90. So sharp. So I know that now if I then come here and then say, what is my sales made up of? It's made up of the 200 multiplied by the 120. So I know my volume and I know my price. And then same here, I can then come and then just do the same thing. And then I know here as well. All right. Then let's go to number 2, which is then the material. So material, I'm told that CB is planning to manufacture the quantities of M and C products to meet the above budgeted sales. So there will not be any inventory at year end. When I see this, I'm very much happy because it means whatever I'm going to produce, it's what I'm going to then sell. So I don't have any closing inventory, right? So good. The green coffee beans lose weight during the manufacturing process, mainly due to water evaporation. And this is referred to, so they will shrink, right? So it's as a shrinkage because of then the loss of water. Now it's starting to get complicated. So it means that I'm going to then have quantity, which is an input, but the input won't be equal to the output because during that process, I'm going to have water evaporation and then it's going to then shrink. And then I'm going to have less output as compared to what I then put in as my input. And the output is what I'm then going to then sell, right? So my output is what I'm going to then sell. So already I can then see to say if my sales volume for M is in kg and I'm selling 200 and I don't have any other inventory remaining, it means that this is my output that I'm then selling in terms of kgs. Happiness. Right? So it means that what I'm going to put is not really going to then be what I'm going to get, but I know what I'm going to get will then be everything that I'm going to then sell. So this then becomes my output. So then that's fine. Then they give us the raw materials. They tell us the raw materials required is 250. And now it makes sense. It means I'm going to input 250 kg. And I'm not going to get 250 kg because of the loss that is then going to then happen. And if then my sales volume is in kg and I'm going to sell everything, I already can see that my input is 250, my output will then be 200. So they didn't need to give you these percentages to say this is the secret percentage. But even if this was not there, you could have then seen, because you don't have any closing inventory, that what I'm putting in and what I'm getting out will then be different, meaning I'm going to lose 50 as a result of evaporation there. So they didn't need to give you this 20%. But if you then multiply the 20% loss, you'll see it's 50,000 and then you get this. All right. Then you have raw material cost per kg. So what is my 250 costing? Then 554. So it means that what makes up this raw material, it will then be the 250 and the 54, right? So it will then be the 250 and the 54, which will give me 13,500,000, which is then, this is what makes up this amount. So already I know my components here, right? Because like I said, we might need them. Same as here as well. All right, so I now have my cost and then I now have my raw material. So that's fine. Now production. So now they give me all this. The roasting type per batch. Again, measurements are very much important. So they're then having the roasting time per batch. So it means that for one batch, I then need 15 minutes of roasting time for M. And then I then need 30 minutes per batch for what? For C, right? Then raw materials per batch. So I know that my raw material per batch is then 100. So for one batch, I will then need 100 materials for one batch. Then for this, I'll need 60 materials for C per batch. And it means that 15 minutes I do one batch, which will need or require 100 materials in terms of kg. All right. So now I can make already connections in terms of this in terms of this, because now if I have my raw material and a batch, and I have my roasting time and batch, it means I can then determine as well to say that how many, if I have 500 materials, how many roasting time will I need? Because I have a batch which is then linking the two. So I have a common ground, which is my batch. So I can then get all of these variables because now I have a common ground, which is then my batch, and you'll see how you then have to think about it. But it means I can then get all these variables here now. Then the number of batches for financial year 2023, we're given the total number of batches. So I can already get my total roasting time if I have my number of batches, because I then know that so let me do this, or let me just open. So I then know that for one batch, so I then know that for one batch, I require 15 minutes, right? So I required this number of hours to then do one batch. And if I then have 202.5 batches, I can then have this as the X that I'm looking, right? Then cross multiply X times this. So I multiply the 2000 by this, then I know that I'm getting my number of hours that are then required for this batch, which will then be the 15 multiply by then the 2,500 to get then the total hours that are needed for my total batch that I've produced during the year. So because I have one batch equals to these hours, so if I have 2.5 batches, how many hours do I have? Then you then just do the maths there to get the number of hours. So I can then do that and play around it. Then I have my the percentage of my shrinkage that I was given. And I know it's 20%, meaning I know if this is my output, I'm going to then get and if this is my input, I'm going to get an output which is then 200,000 because of the 20%. And I'm told that there's no closing inventory, so they did that on purpose to say whatever is there is here is what will then be the output. So I can then literally do that. All right, almost there. I'm going to speed up a bit. Then,
Sir,
yes,
can we please go back to the raw material? Sorry.
yes.
You were talking about the way, I think the way I analyzed, I feel like it's wrong because I did the question, right? So I wanted you to please help me on this one. So what I did what you did on the time,
Yeah,
which I did the 15/16, which I got 0.25.
yeah.
So I actually also calculated the per kg of, like, I wanted to get how much is 1 kg for, like, I think I
You confuse
tried.
yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
So I feel like this thing of not able to show you what I did.
Okay.
uh, I
So,
feel
but
like
yeah.
what I did, I took that 100, I took the two, isn't it? I got the way I got my 0.8 kg. I wanted to find out, like, how much kg can I produce? Like the
Okay.
input. I was trying to get the input
Okay.
in a ratio form. I don't know if I make sense in my question.
Okay. So you want to try to get the input of one pack that we are
Yes,
selling. So
yes,
the input, yes, so the input
be-
of one pack,
mm,
right? So we are told that a pack will have 1 kg,
yes,
right? Which is a
yes,
pack, meaning this
yes,
1 kg is already an output. So if I'm then
yes,
going to check how many I'm putting in terms of one pack, I will then say this kg already it's 80% of what I then need to get. So I need to then get kgs that are then going to then be what? That are going to then be 100%. So I then just need to then what? To then take this 1 kg and divide by the 0.80. So I gross it up to 100. So you don't multiply by 80%, because if you multiply by 80%, you are saying that this is your input and you're getting 80%, which is output. So I'm going to come here and say 1 kg divide by 0.8. and I think this should then be 0.2 or something, right? 1.2, I mean.
Oh.
Yes, and then you get now, so let's just say 1.2. I'm not really sure. But you know that then the input here, this is the input, we're gonna lose some and we get to the 1 kg per pack.
Okay.
Yes, so you can't take the output already and multiply it by 80% because the output already is 80%. So out 1 kg equals to 80%. I need 100%. What is then my kgs? Then you do the maths.
Because I ended on the 0.8.
No, the 0.8 you are saying you are doing it the other way around. So you're saying the 1 kg is what we put.
Okay, and the reason why I first thought of that, I actually did not read the required first.
Yeah.
I first read the scenario.
Yeah. And remember, the first time you are reading the scenario, you are starting to think about these things, right? So this is me reading the scenario before. So obviously the time and all those things, but you're trying to just break down some of the things that are there.
Okay. No, I thought I'm having a wrong exam technique. Okay, no, it's fine. Thank you very much.
All right. Then we have labor, right? So for labor, assume that 4 hours of direct labor are required for per batch. So again, I have per batch, I have a common denominator or a common ground that I can use. So 4 hours is required for 1 batch. So I have this number of batch. I can already determine my number of hours that I then need for what? For the year financial year 2023. Then I multiply that with the cost because I'm told that the cost for both of them is 60, right? So 4 hours are needed per batch for M and 5 hours will then be needed for C. So already I can also work on that to say that, okay, I can get my total number of batch that are there. And it means I can then do what? I can then calculate then the cost. Yep. Then CB, employ skilled and qualified individual, which is 1.4, which is then the quality control. And then after the roasting process in the company, so we employ them already, right? So they're in our books, we're paying them. The cost of operating the lab are allocated to all products based on the charge out rate per batch of 24. So they gave us already what we are allocating this with. Then it's fine. So per batch, it means that if I'm then coming here, I know this is then 60 because I multiplied it with the total number of batches that are there. Then CB uses high quality packaging, and then the packaging it's appealing to customers, and the packaging cost for M 350, and then for C 450, right? Because this has the higher cost of the latter is due to the higher quality material and more graphics used. And this now, when I'm thinking about this, remember I said if you then have to then compare and then also comment the components. So if I'm then comparing the components and also I then see that the quality inspection that is here is part of the components of the gross profit. So this information kind of helped me in terms of analyzing to say, okay, so this is more expensive to this because of the high cost and high quality material. So already I'm seeing that C, it's a high quality product as compared to M. Like I can already see, because even the materials that we are using more quality on C than on M in terms of our packaging. And I can't then go as a company and package something that does not really have more quality and package it using a package that has quality, right? So obviously, I can't do that. If I'm then spending on the packaging, it means that I have an appreciation to say that this cost or this product is of quality. So already I'm then seeing those insights as well, which are those insights that you're going to need when you then compare. All right, so indirect materials overheads are allocated to each roasting machine, and then each roasting machine is treated as a cost center. Then the budgeted indirect manufacturing cost here that have been allocated to the RO1 machine. And remember, to do this project, we just use the RO1 machine only, right, at this. So they gave us the budgeted cost, which is then the total, right? And then they gave us then this to say these are our budgeted cost. So we know that if we're then using ABC, it allows us to have different activities. So now I'm starting to think myself to say, if these are then the total amount, if I'm then just using the traditional method, I'm gonna go to this amount and use this based on the hours that they gave me, or based on the matching hours between the two, and then I separate this amount. But now they gave me the activities, meaning that I then need to do what? To then separate. So I know the activity, I know the cost, I then need to get the cost driver. Then when we come here, they then say the following allocation were used for each of the above items in financial year 2023. So from what is here, they already gave us their allocation that they used for each and everything. So for example, for rent, they used their floor space. So that's what they've done now. And then for purchasing department as well, they gave us. For repairs, they give us. And then also for employee cost, they gave us to say what they do. And then depreciation as well, they then gave us. Then the total allocated indirect manufacturing cost of then 31952 associated with this machine were then allocated based on then their direct labor hours. Then they give us the labor hours, which is then the total and then the percentage, and then how they then allocated their indirect manufacturing overheads. Now, the board of CB is concerned that the allocation of indirect manufacturing overheads to M and C on the basis of direct labor may not be accurate, right? It might not then accurately reflect the relative cost of manufacturing these products. The board has suggested that the allocation be reperformed on the following basis. So now they gave us now the cost driver, we have the activity, and then we have the cost of each and every activity. So we can then do what? Use ABC. Then let's go to our required. We are told that recalculate, and then it means that we are recalculating what? The gross profit that has been there. And I have already touched on this. Using and the gross profit of each M and C here using the following new allocation. So I then need to then use the allocation. However, the direct and indirect still remains the same. And what I'm going to then change only will then be their overheads, because they're allocated using direct labor hours. And now I'm using this overheads allocation. So it then means that what I then need to do here will then be to determine ABC, right? And then need to determine the overheads. I have my total and then calculate my ABC. So let's then do this. So what I'm going to then do, I know I have my gross profit, right? So let me then do this. So I know I have my gross profit here, which is then 6 for M. So for M, I have 6. And then for N, so I have 6, 7, 6, 4, 6 to 8. And then I have then my gross profit here for N, which then becomes 17 1747392. Sharp. So it means that I know this is my gross profit, and I know only the things that I then need to adjust will then be the indirect manufacturing overhead. So I can then just add this back, right? First to say, okay, this I minus them here. So because I have to adjust, I then have to add it back. Or you can then just do the allocation, then add everything again. But that is wasting your time, because I then just need to then adjust this only, which is then the 2 175,372, and then here I then need to adjust the 17128. Then I know I now need to allocate them using ABC. Then I add them here. Then I come and I get my gross margin. So I know I can then just do that. Or you can allocate, then you come and recopy all this, then you add to get your gross profit margin, because that's what the calculation is saying, or the required is saying. But a good exam technique will then be, all right, I have this, everything else is correct. I'm just gonna add back this, and then I now allocate it here, get my gross profit, then calculate my margin. I've saved time in terms of copying things that are not gonna give me marks. All right, so let's then, yes? Can we please mute? Thanks. So now,
Sir,
yes.
on the exam technique, may you please go to your Excel? Sorry.
Sure.
What you actually did is that you took your gross profit.
Yes.
You deducted the indirect manufacturing overheads because the manufacturing overheads are actually allocated to its cost drivers.
Yes. So what happened? So we are recalculating this, right? So with recalculating this, you need to take your sale, this, but now we don't consider this part anymore, because this part anymore was allocated on another basis, and now we are changing using ABC. We are using another basis, right? So instead of then just copying all of this, I can then just add, because this was subtracted. So I add it back to this amount. So I take it out. Then I can allocate using my ABC. Then I can then add everything. I get my gross profit.
Oh, now I see it. Okay.
Yes. So you just then working from this, and then minus what you don't want, and then do what you want. Instead of then just doing ABC and then having back to say, okay, now I have my overheads. Let me go copy my sales, this. Then I calculate my gross profit margin. It's gonna be a problem. But you can do it still. But you need to start identifying areas where you can save marks.
Okay.
So save time, I mean.
All right. No, thank you very much, sir.
All right. So now let's go deal with the driver and then see. So we have rent. So for rent, we are then told that the driver, so this amount here now is divided, right, into different factors. So we need to then allocate each one of them. And then we are told that, okay, for rental, we can use roasting hours. But I then see that, okay, we have repairs as well, where we use roasting hours. We have depreciation as well, where we use roasting hours, meaning that I can add the cost of 1, 2, 3, and allocate them together, right? Because all of them, they need roasting hours. So I can then just do that and allocate them together rather than doing 1, 1, 1, because 1, 1, 1 again, I'm wasting time. So I can then add then the rental here. Rental premise here, I add depreciation 400,000. I add repairs. I then add as well to then get the total. Then I can use my roasting hours. But now I have to come and determine my total roasting hours. And then I can come here and then I said here, what they did is that they gave us to say for roasting time per batch is 15 it's 15 minutes, right? So if I'm then going to then say, what is then my total hours or my total roasting hours? I'm then told to say for one batch, I can then make 15, right? And it's hours, so I have to convert this to hours. I can make 15 for M. And then for C, I'm being told that for one batch, I can then make 30, right? It takes 30. And again, when I'm doing this, I'm seeing the inside, because remember I have to comment on these things when I then comment on my components. I see that, okay, it's indeed then talking to the quality of C, because it even takes it takes more to even do the batch as compared to the M product. So I'm getting those insight as well. So it's not just a matter of saying, okay, this is that, but what does it mean? It means that this takes 15 minutes, this takes 30 minutes. So, okay, so for product C, I'm even taking more. So I'm getting those insights. Then I'm told that, okay, I have my number of batch here. And my number of batch that I'm given is what? Is 250 or 2,500. So that's 2,500. So I said, if I have 2,500, I can then get here, which are then my total hours now, right? Solve for X. So one batch gives me this, and then I have this number of batches. So how much is this? Cross multiply, X multiplied by this multiplied by this. So then it will then give us our total hours, which will then be this multiplied by this. So this multiplied by, what is it giving me? This is 15 over 60, which will then give me 6.2. So it means that for M, in terms of roasting hours, I then get for M, and then I have for C, and then I have my total. So for M, this will then be 625. And then I do the same thing here. But now here I'm told that I have what? I have 688 per batch. So 688. So again, I can calculate this by this. Then I get what? I get 344. So then this becomes 344. So it means my total hours for roasting becomes 968. And then I need the cost for what? For three things, because I have to allocate those three things using those hours, being the rental, the repairs, the depreciation. So if I then say my rental is 625, so I then need the 625. I then need my depreciation, which is 400,000, which is 400,000. And then I then need the last one, which is my repairs and maintenance, which is then 180. So it means that now I can then get my total here. So I can then just allocate this total using these hours. So if I then say this multiplied by for M over the total number, I then get this. And then if I then come here, then I say this again, multiply by the 344 over the total, I then get this, right? So the total here should then give me this here. So this then becomes what I then allocate for those things that are there. Then I can then say, all right, so for overhead, where I have rental, I have depreciation, and then I have, so I have depreciation, and then I have repairs. I can then say I'm allocating, and this is going to be a minus now, right? Because remember, this is your overhead cost. So when you calculate your gross profit margin, this is going to be a minus. So I can then allocate this and then also allocate this here. Any questions? All good. Happiness. Then I go to then the next one. So the next one will then be, I need the purchasing department. And I'm being told that the purchasing department will then be done on the number of purchase orders, right? So numbers of purchase orders. So then this becomes easy, because when we were reading, you will then see that they give us the purchasing orders. All right, so yes, the purchasing department sources and purchases these bins, and then the above allocated amount of this will then be based on 100 of Mona and 80 of C. So that becomes simple, right? I don't have to calculate anything in terms of getting my things. So I know that what will then be my purchasing order. Here I'm told that it's 100. Here I'm told that it's 80. Then it means the total becomes 180. And then what is then the cost? I have the cost, then you allocate it as well. So allocate it same as this, then you come then and put it as a minus here in terms of the overhead. Sharp. So we then dealt with this. Then we have employee cost, which you are told is direct labor hours, and overheads is direct labor hours. So meaning these two, I can then also group them together, because now it's what? I can group them together because now they're talking about hours instead of just doing one because I'm wasting time, because still it's going to give me the same outcome. So now I then need to determine my hours, right? To say how many hours are there that I then need to have. And again, I was told to say it then takes 4 hours. 4 hours of direct labor are required per batch. So I know that if then I'm required 4 hours per batch and I have 2.5 as my number of batch, it means that the hours or labor hours for then those two things that we are doing. So the labor hours for M and N will then be this one. I'm told it takes 4 hours per batch, and batch we know we have 2.5, so that will be 10, and the other one takes 5, right? 5 hours per batch. Again, it does what? And again, I'm getting insight to say, oh, okay, so this even takes more in terms of labor. So indeed, it is my high quality product, because even the amount of people working, they have to then spend more. So I'm thinking the resources that I'm putting in, when I then compare even the two, I then need to see the benefits of the extra packaging, the benefits of the extra hours of people, the benefits of the extra time on the machine in terms of roasting. I need to then see it as an outcome now when I then try to compare my gross profits, right? So that's what I'm planning to think, because I'm seeing that we are putting more resources to that. So I'm told it takes 5 hours, and then that's 688. So it means that 5 multiplied by 688, and then I get 3.4. I have my total here. Then after having my total, I do what? I allocate. Then after doing my allocation, I'm then done. So like I'm gonna open the solution now, and then I'm gonna go through it. Oh God, where would they put that solution? So I'm gonna I'm gonna open this, and then we'll then go through the solution there, and then you see. But it means that now we are done in terms of then the in terms of the allocations. All right, so this
Sorry,
becomes
sir.
sure.
Sorry for disturbing.
No, come to
From that, the calculation of labor hours, where do you get the 688? I thought we were going to use 60.
all right. So what? So let's go back to the thing. What is then the 60?
The 60 per hour. The
Yes.
cost of direct labor is 60 rand per
Okay.
hour.
Okay. So
Yes.
so this is the cost, right?
Yeah, yes.
And then what is then our allocation base?
Allocation base. Okay, let me, for my suggestion, right?
Okay.
I thought we were going to say 5 times 4, which is 20, and then times the 60 labor per hour, 60 rand
Yes.
per hour.
And that gives you what? It gives you the total cost of labor.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
does not
yeah.
give you. It does not give you the hours. And
Oh,
we are using the hours to allocate. So we are not there on the
oh,
on the cost, or we are using the hours to allocate. So this will then be used, and this direct labor. So that you will then do it when you're calculating your direct labor. But now, because we are allocating the overheads, and when we are allocating the overheads, we're not allocating the direct labor cost in a way, right? That is direct. We're then using the overheads and the employee cost, which is indirect, but we are using the direct labor hours. So already the cost we have it, which is here. And the cost is not the sickest, but it's the cost of the overhead. But we're going to use the hours to then allocate. So the cost, you're going to use it to calculate the direct labor, not now the overhead.
oh, okay, now I follow.
Happiness.
Yes.
Sure. So this is the solution. Like I said, we start with the gross profit. We add back what we don't want. we then allocate this, we go allocate this, we then go allocate this, we get our revised gross profit. You stop there, I don't give you the 1 mark, which is just a calculation mark, because you have to do the gross profit margin, and that is what you are required. Then this becomes then the answer, and you get all your 11 marks there. Any question? All good.
Hi, Amanda.
Yes, come through.
Sorry. So in terms of the grouping of the, you see the tip that you're giving to us in order to save time is to just group it. So does
Yes.
that not lead to any loss of marks in terms of not showing the marker, like the breakdown
Yes.
for? I think.
Yeah, I get you.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So I just wanted to know if me grouping it like that and trying to, I know for exam technique, in order to save time, which is something that I actually struggle with, and I think this is a great tip. However, for marking purposes, am I still going to get my marks for those calculations that I've done there? Meanwhile, I've just put things together in order to come to the answer. That's just my concern.
So I get you. I get you. I get you. And why do you guys keep on apologizing when you're asking questions? I try to be nice. I this nice also in real life. Eh? Okay, so yeah, so I hear you, right? And again, exam technique, you need to think about these things in a critical way. So I always tell people to show their calculations. So that's one exam technique that I tell people to say, if you're calculating something, at least show your calculation so that I can follow, and then I give you your marks that you need or you deserve. However, there's a difference between showing calculation and then a difference between demonstrating the same principle all over again. So if I then say, I'm saying to you, I then have this thing, I then have 3 things that I need you to allocate using labor hours. And I know that if you then just add the cost, add the cost, add the cost, and use those labor hours, you're gonna get to the same final final place, right? So your destiny is gonna be the same, and you then go and do it each line. I'm going to give you 1 mark because you're demonstrating the same principle. That's the first thing. And the second thing will then be, when we then allocate using overhead, what are we trying to then do? Firstly, I'm then trying to say, do you understand your activity? Do you understand then your cost per activity? And then do you understand your cost drive? So if I then have activities that are being driven by the same cost, I then expect you to then group them, because even when you're understanding the cost, you will then say, okay, all of these are being driven by the hours. So if I change the hours, it's going to affect 1, 2, 3, which are my costs, because they're being driven by then the hours. So here you won't lose the mark because the principle is the same, and you're still going to come and add. So you're going to show me that, okay, I'm adding here. So I'm going to put 1, 2, 3 to get to this total amount. So maybe if you then add this on your calculator, then it's a problem, because if you add it on a calculator and then you get an incorrect mark here, when I'm marking and I don't see this, I'm now saying, where did you get this amount from? And I now struggle to then get it. You say, how then did you calculate this amount, right? So that is now you not showing the calculations. But if you then show me the calculation of this amount, and then I can see that is then 180, 400 to get to this amount. And that's why I encourage people to write this down and put it down, because if they make a mistake here, I can then see that, oh, okay, this was the mistake, but everything is then right. Then, however, in terms of allocating, I will then expect you to then allocate this, because it's going to bring us back to the same thing. So at least show me where you get the 1.2 and then write everything down. Then you can allocate the 1.2.
That makes sense. Yes,
yeah,
that makes sense.
yes. But if you then just show me this one amount that you're allocating it, then it's a problem, because if you make a mistake on this amount, it means that I don't know where your mistake was. Maybe you wrote 3 here when you're putting in your calculator, and now I'm just seeing 1.5 being allocated, and I'm like, okay, 1.5, where is this person getting the 1.5? Now you're not showing me the calculations. But if you then show me that 1.5 is made up of this, I see, oh, you made a mistake here. or you put 182, so you didn't copy the amount right, and I can even give you this mark. But that's the only thing that I would want you to show me. I wouldn't want you to then go back again and put this year, hours here, this year, hours here, the same, and then recalculate like that. All right.
Happy. Thanks.
Sure. Any other question? Simple, easy, right? Easy. ABC is so easy. Like it's very easy. There's a strategy that you can then follow to then get to the answer. But again, marks like this, you need to get them, because that is what has been required of you guys to then do. All right. So we're gonna have a break soon. So just bear with me so that we can then at least try to push this and read through it. So let's read through this question, and then we're then gonna come back and then do it. But let's read through it. All right, so I'm gonna skip this, the compare, and then I'm gonna go to this one, which is then the 18 marks. All right, then the long-term supply contract, right? Nicholas Food. Oh, okay. So there's something new that is coming through. Remember, I have my budget already, my budgeted gross profit already that is here, right? Then I'm being told to say Nicholas Food is a niche retailer of garment food and related products. It has 10 retail outlets in Cape Town, Johannesburg, and Plettenberg Bay. NF has not purchased products from CB in the past. Oh, okay. New supplier. That's where you guys then shine, right? That's where you need to shine. If I have to do additional consideration or reputation of the new supplier, right? We are doing business with them for the first time. How reliable are they? The reliability of them. What if they don't deliver on their promise? What if they don't deliver on their contract? And one thing that I say in terms of discussion, like, and I always say it, so those that were there in the first tutorial, they will know in terms of how we generate more things to talk about, right? So I'm just gonna briefly touch on it. So if I'm then thinking that, okay, this customer one is a new customer, think about what can go wrong if that happens, right? So if you then say the reliability of this customer, we need to question it or determine whether they're gonna be reliable. Think about if they are not reliable, what can go wrong? So if you get stuck at any exam in terms of discussion questions, go back to what you have written and then say, okay, I'm supposed to put 10 points. I have 5 points. I don't know what to put, right? I tried my best. I don't know what to put. Go back to the points that are there and then say, all right, I'm reading this point. What can go wrong if this happens? And then you will be surprised how many points you're gonna come with just by thinking about that. So if then supply is not reliable, we are now thinking, all right, if I'm having a contract with them and they're not reliable, did we include clauses of saying if they don't do this, what we're then gonna have those recourse on we're gonna have a recourse on the contract, right? Did we then include that? Right? Do we have other alternatives to say if they don't deliver, we are then safe in terms of a backup? So you see that by just thinking about one thing that I put down, because you guys tend to limit yourself in terms of discussion, and you need to consider everything that the board has to consider at the end of the day. So go back to what you have, think about what can go wrong if this then happens. Then you will be surprised how many points you're going to then get. All right. So, and then in the past, but has noted that many of his customer request. So NF has noted that many of his customers request M coffee. All right, so they're limiting us to M coffee now from its shop. So they have shops. Customers are requesting our coffee from our shop. So they come and they're now trying to negotiate something with us. All right, NF has approached CB to manufacture coffee beans. Oh, okay. So NF is coming to us. We already manufacture our own things, right? So these people are coming to us. They're saying, they want us to manufacture coffee beans. We already manufacture coffee beans. So it's not like you are coming with a new strategy to me to say, all right, I want us to then, because I see you have the capacity, why don't you then diversify and do something like this? So you want me still to manufacture coffee beans. And these coffee beans are going to be branded SNF fine beans. All right. So I'm manufacturing coffee beans for you. And then I'm going to brand these coffee beans as per your name. Okay. Oh, all right. Maybe it will make sense. Let's read it and then see. NF fine beans 1 kg packs identical to MN products. Oh, okay. So I don't have to worry about the kg, meaning the kg that I can use, or if I'm then determining the impact, I can still use the cost that I have here because it's identical, right? Except that it will be packaged by NF branded packaging material. So everything is the same besides the packaging. Remember, us we cost 350 for us packaging our things, but now we're gonna package it using NF branded packaging material. All right. So already here I can think of a lot of considerations that I can then talk to, right? So now I'm thinking, you guys already, you want me to then purchase this and then okay, but let me not say all of these things. I'll hear from you guys what you then think when you go to the discussion. All right. And then from this, I can already answer my discussion. Like I can already think to just show you how from something small you can generate a lot of points. But you guys limit yourself, and then you don't want to then just think more and try to then just think about the points that you have and then just think about what can go wrong. Because if I'm then just here and I have 3 points from here, I can think about what can go wrong in those points and I can generate 3 more points from that. So from this, I have then 6 points already that I then need to put down. All right. Then NF has put the following proposal. Oh, okay. So let's hear your proposal here.
So, sir,
sure.
Before they gave us, you see, the proposal, what's going on in that little paragraph.
Yes.
Am I allowed to say, who's this one? Coffee Bean is outsourcing its products.
Yeah.
It triggers that.
You say what?
That it triggers outsourcing. Like I can think that it is out in a view, if I want to put it in a visionary, that they're outsourcing their products.
So,
or they're not.
So from here, so you can then say, so NF has approached us to manufacture our coffee beans, right? So
Yes.
so yes, you can then say in terms of our manufacturing processes, we are then outsourcing that. Is outsourcing the right word to use? We are then using our capacity.
So it's
to
not
that.
a right word.
It's not the right word to outsource. Because to outsource,
Now we're talking about
I
CB,
mean,
we're talking about NF.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think we need to understand who we are in this context of this question.
Okay.
We are the supplier to NF.
We
Correct.
franchise. They
other
want
way
us to
around.
franchise
So,
to them.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, they want
Yeah.
us to franchise to them, of which is not a good idea because they might take away our customers and
Yes.
enhance whatever we have and make it a good product for themselves.
Because already they're branding it using their brand, right?
Yes, our best product is okay. It's not best because our best product is C,
Yeah,
but yeah, they
but
can take it away.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Come through.
No, now I get it. No, so outsourcing, you must look at who is who, right?
Yes. So outsourcing is not the right. It's not the right term.
Okay, then so therefore this one gives me the point of this is franchising.
Yes, this is us then. Yes, giving away our product.
Okay, that's a big risk. Okay, no, thank you very much.
Yes, but I mean, if they're paying, they can pay, right? So there's a lot of considerations. Yes, we can give them, we can lose customers, but if they come and say, okay, we'll give you 5 million, or we'll buy 1 pack at, remember we are selling 1 pack at what, 180, right? So we are selling 1 pack at 120. So they come and say, no, for 1 pack, we'll give you 200. I mean, okay, we are,
And the
then
royalties.
yeah, you see, there are a lot of considerations that are there that you
And
can
the
then,
royalties, and they can maybe, like, if they do well, they can attract other franchisees.
yes,
So
to then
yeah.
come. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that you can then also think about. So it's not all about the negatives, but the positives that you can also then think about. But obviously there's something wrong again, just fundamentally in terms of just you using my product and then branding them. But this is what even your big shops do. Like if you go to Spar and you go to ShopRite, all of those things that are branded to say, they're made there, ShopRite and what. They don't really manufacture them, but they buy them from other people and then they brand them as goods that are, ShopRite or Checkers goods there. So if you go to beans, you'll find that there are beans that are from a different company and the ones that are Checkers that are there. But it's not like they make beans, right? So they go buy from other people their beans and then they come and then they just do what? They package it using ShopRite. So it's not like it's something unusual, but we then need to then determine to say, what are the benefits that we are then getting from the whole arrangement? All right. So bear with me. I'm just gonna read this, we take a break, then finish off this question here, because this is a very, very, very brilliant question. And I want us to, by the time we leave here, to have understood everything that is here. All right, so NF has put the following proposal to CB. NF will purchase and pay all raw materials. Okay, they're starting now. NF will purchase and pay all raw materials and packaging materials required to manufacture the FN beans and deliver this to CB premises and as and when required to manufacture. So what they're saying is that, all right, I know you also purchase these materials that you say you purchase here, right? These are your costs and all those things. So I don't want you then to worry about producing or manufacturing and also worry about going to then get the raw materials. So I will then save you this cost. I will then go and buy the materials and I will then come and deliver the materials to you. And also when we are done, you don't have to worry about the packaging. I will do my own packaging. So what I want from you, I'm coming to give you the materials, use your resources to then manufacture and your skills and whatever, what is the word? And whatever receipt that you have, and then give me the final product, and then I will then do what? I will then brand it. So that's what they want, right? So it means in this decision that I'm going to then make, the raw materials that I have to buy for whatever quantity that these people need, and the packaging, do you agree with me that these two won't be relevant to my decision, or they won't affect my impact or impact the profitability that I already have, because I don't have to go and incur additional cost of raw material and additional costs of packaging material, because this they're going to then do it. So do you agree that these two are not relevant? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we agree.
Sharp. Then you'll see why, and you'll see if you agree. You need to still show me that they're not relevant, and I'm going to give you a mark to show that you understand that these are non-relevant costs, because someone will then just leave them and not do anything, then you lose 2 marks. But we're gonna discuss that. Then NF and CB will enter into a 5-year contract. So again, yes,
Should we affect our current Mona M product? Then there would be some kind of cost saving. Am I right?
come
Of
again.
thinking that? Should they maybe say they're going to affect Mona in a certain way, since this product that we're gonna manufacture now, it's exactly as Mona.
Mm.
Is it gonna be a cost saving in terms of the packaging and us ordering the raw material, that cost that we have in terms of ordering?
Okay, so I want you to hold that thought. Ne? So just hold it a bit. We're gonna talk to that. Just hold it a bit. And I'm gonna answer you now. Just hold it a bit. So let's continue, and then I'm gonna get to that. So NF and CB will enter into a 5-year supply agreement. Again, 5 years is a long of time. You can come with a lot of considerations when it comes to this as well. You can talk about renewals. What if it finishes? What are the renewals and like blah blah blah? What if we enter into a 5-year and then something better comes? Can we then get out of the contract? Because now we are looking ourselves for 5 full years. So you can think about a lot of things there as well. So NF will purchase 5.2 packs, right, of NF beans during the first year of agreement. So we are going to package 5.2 packs. So my question to you guys is that this 5.1 51,200 packs, how many kg is that?
Before I answer,
Yes.
are the packs, how can I put this? Are the packs the batches? I just want to find out. Sorry. No,
the packs is the units.
It's the units.
Yes.
So it cannot be affected by the batches, which we've about the previous what we've read as a background.
So when we say a batch, né? So a batch,
Yes.
we're saying we produce in a batch of 10. So in units of 10. So you understand?
Oh,
So that
okay.
when they say a batch, it means that it's a batch of our units. So maybe sometimes our machines won't give one pack. We'll give them. It will then give us 10 packs, which is one batch.
Oh, okay. No, now I understand. No, thank you.
Yes. So, or you can have one batch being 51,000 packs. So maybe the machine takes out this at the same time.
Oh, so now here on this
If
packs,
you go to ShopRite there,
yes,
and then they're baking breads, right? You see those machine. When
yes.
you say you're going for that the bread that we love a lot, the one that we wait for it there when they're baking it. Once they take it out, they don't take one. They will take a batch of the units of those bread, maybe 24 at the same time. Then they put it down there. So that's a batch.
Okay, now I see it. Okay, now
Yes.
thank you very much.
No, you said you're gonna answer me.
What did I answer?
The question is saying how many kg of this.
And I forgot I said that commitment, hey?
Okay.
Forgive.
So let me help you. So let me help you. Okay, move quickly. So NF will be 1 kg. Remember, we came back to say 1 unit is 1 kg. Even here, we say we produce 1 kg packs. So a pack is 1 kg, right? So meaning that, and here we say they're identical as well. So it's 1 kg, meaning that this will then be 51,200 kgs, right? That we're taking out. Now, that is then the output. My question will then be, if this is what we're then going to take out as a pack, what will then be our input of kgs?
We multiply by that 80% thing.
Yeah. Multiply by 1.25.
Okay.
kg.
So
or divided.
Okay, which one is which?
1.2. Yeah, it's 1.2.
The 1.25.
So it's 20%, ne?
Mm.
So it's 20%. So you're saying we're doing what?
We're going to divide by 80% to get to the
100%.
input.
Correct. And correct. We don't multiply this by 80%. And I've touched on this to say this is the output. So this is 80% of what was then put as initially. Yes. What was then the initial materials that we then say we are using. This is what has been produced. So for us to then get to say, if we're gonna give these guys 200 kgs, it means we're then going to have to put more than this, because we're gonna lose the 20 to then get to this, right? So yes, we're gonna divide by 0.8 to then get the input that we then need, because that will then be the cost of the materials. All right. Then during the first year, they will pay 40 rands. All right, I'm thinking 40 rands. All right, yes, you're not paying for raw materials, you're not taking for packaging. So I need to then compare to the 120 that I'm selling for my customers. Then thereafter we'll negotiate. Again, I'm thinking renegotiation, this does not give me stability in the next 5 years. We'll rather have prices on the contract so that I can then know to say this. What if next year you then come and say, because you see it didn't go well, you're like, let's come back to 20 rands, and we can't then find our a balance between the price that we need to charge. All right. So the board of directors of CBS requested the FD to analyze the impact of entering into the long-term strategy on the profitability. And we say impact is what we are bringing in that is now going to affect, or the lady that I said, hold your thought, or if there's going to be something that we're going to be taking out that we will no longer need, it will then affect, yes, our profitability. So let's see if there's going to be something that will then not need to produce anymore, which would have included it as part of our profitability. So the RE machine is able to manufacture additional products. So I have this RE machine, and this RE machine, I say I manufacture 2 products only. When I was going through the required, we said the RE machine manufactures only the M and the C, right? That's what it manufactures. So we read it somewhere. Then we are told that it can manufacture additional products, but this will be restricted to an additional 100 hours per annum. What do you mean by that? To say that it's going to then be restricted to this 100 hours. It means that if I then determine, it means I have to determine how many hours will the NF fine beans take. And if I determine the hours of the NF beans that I'm doing for them, because they gave me the packs and I have the kg, and we came here, we told that it's the same thing as what we are doing, and we have the minutes and we have the batch and we have all that. So I can determine the hours. So if I then determine the hours of how much we'll need to produce NF, and those additional hours, or those hours that I determine are less, so say it's 80, it means that I can still produce M, I can still produce C, and I can produce this additional NF because I have the matching hours if they are less. So it means what will then be my impact on profitability? What is coming in only, because I can still remain with the budgeted profit that I had, which will then be M and N. However, if I then calculate these hours and there are more, it means that we have then an issue, because then the hours are more than the additional, meaning there has to be us reducing something. So if there are more than 100, it means we can then produce this number of packs as per our agreement, and then there will need to be a reduction of something. So this second line then says, CB may thus need to reduce the volume of mono product manufactured and sold to other products in order to fulfill this contract. So it means that I will then have taken this MN as part of my budgeting, because I didn't think that I'm going to get a product that is going to come in. Now I have this additional product. Now I'm saying that I can't produce all of them because I don't have the required hours. So it means that I will then have to go reduce some of then the product M that I was then producing. And if I'm reducing that product M, what was I expecting? I was expecting the sales that I was getting. I was expecting to incur costs to then produce them. So it means that that becomes then the impact that the M will then have, which is then my contribution. What was then the contribution of M that I was going to then get? So I will then need to determine that, and that also will then be an impact which I'm going to then adjust. So what is coming in and what I will then have to now stop, or now I have to go back and readjust, because that sale, I'm not going to get it anymore, and that cost, I'm not going to incur it anymore. So that again then becomes what is going to then impact my profitability. Happiness. Are you answered? The lady was asking if it's going to impact the profitability.
Yes.
Happiness. So,
Manda, please
yes.
repeat your last statement on the profitability.
Oh, yes. So remember, if we then go to our impact, we said our impact always will then be what. So we said our impact will have done a budget already. Then something comes up, and then they tell us that determine the impact of whatever is coming up. And the impact can be on a lot of things. So they can say an impact on profitability, meaning it's my profit. They can say what is the impact on the balance sheet, meaning you have to determine the impact on the assets or all those things. They can say the impact on the financial statements, meaning I have to take my profitability and my balance sheet. They can say my impact on the cash flow, meaning I have to determine the cash flow only. They can say what is the impact of the agreement on my strategy, meaning that I have to discuss the strategic part. So it's very much important. So when you see impact, don't just jump to profit, because Manda said you must then deal with profit. Then first determine the impact is on what. Here they told us that the impact is on the profitability. So profitability, basically they're saying the impact on this profit that you had budgeted. So now I'm saying that if this agreement is going to give us more, because these guys are going to be giving us the money, so it means that the more sales and the expense are going to then contribute or add to this profit. However, whatever we are taking out, which we would have budgeted here, because now we can produce everything, we then need to take it out as well, because it has an impact on this profit, because we're no longer going to then get the profit as we have initially budgeted or planned.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
All right. Then, yes, so that's that. So CB will be able to employ more direct laborers to cater for increased production at the prevailing rate. So it means we're going to add more cost relevant. The lab staff involved in quality control will be able to cope with the increased batch testing volumes at no extra cost. What does this mean? Anyone wants to
The cost is irrelevant.
The cost is irrelevant, but I'll show you one exam technique, because I need you to show me to say you just didn't. Pella, there's two things. When I'm marking, I see someone who omitted and didn't even touch it, but they didn't know. They didn't touch it because they didn't know. And I see someone who omitted, they didn't write it, but they knew it's relevant. They're like, I'm leaving it because it's relevant. I'm not going to give marks to both of them, because I don't know which one knows and which one does not know, because you left it. So you need to show me and write it to say this, you put dash or you put irrelevant. I will give you then the mark. You have demonstrated the principle. All right. Then CB will incur additional repairs, maintenance, and overhead cost of 550,000 should it enter into the agreement with NF. Relevant or not relevant?
It's relevant.
Correct. Then the supply contract with NF will have to result in an incremental contribution of 1 million for it to be financial valuable. So they're saying that whatever difference or the impact that is going to then have should then give us at least 1 million there. So to then determine. So it means if it's less than 1 million, we then won't consider it financial valuable. But it does not mean that we make a decision, because you still need to do a lot of things. If it's a project And one of these other things that you need to think, if the project I have to do NPV always to then determine. So we can't just then determine the profitability. We need to do NPV, and then we check some of the things as well, and then we can then determine. So, but this then they gave you the basis. All right. Any questions on this before we take a break?
Manda?
Yes, come through.
So what I got from this, it gave me the special order vibes. But now, since it's a long-term agreement that they are trying to get, so also I don't know if maybe special orders can be in a long term, or it should be that special for that maybe that year or that month.
Okay.
So in this case, this is a special order. I mean, I can apply that there's a limiting factor, which is machine hours. Then I should know, or already from the scenario, we had determined that C has the highest contribution from what we read. And also, that's why they already told us. If they didn't tell us that maybe which product is going to be reduced, the volume of the product that is going to be reduced, maybe we'd have to now determine the highest contribution, and then we determine the opportunity lost or the contribution lost. Yeah, so that means I'm correct. I can apply the special order requirement. Yeah, principles.
That's the same. Yes, I agree 100%.
All right.
Sure.
Manda?
Yes.
When we started the scenario, did they tell us which costing method are they using?
No, they didn't tell us.
So now, because they're busy saying contribution, calculating contribution, is it safe to say you can get a mark if you can mention at the end to say, due to that, they're using this kind of method? Can you get a mark?
So let's take a step back. So the method or the system being used is not really relevant here. So the reason we're using contribution is because some of the fixed costs that are there won't be relevant to the decision.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
It's actually like wasting time. It's a time wasting if you're doing that, because it's not what is required.
Yes, so the required is not that. So every time we do this, we use the contribution because we are saying what is then the product contributing there. But then if we had to determine the system one way or another that they're using, we then going to then have an idea even in terms of their budgeting to say that they've gross profit. So then it means the way that they're budgeting in terms of doing decisions, they're then using absorption.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the enlight. Because if I was alone in the exam, I was going to be negative on this scenario. To say, I'm not going to give away, I'm not going to take their offer because they're going to steal my product. So thank you.
Sure. Any questions before we take a break?
Sorry, sir. Just a quick one, sir. Manda.
Yes.
Just a quick query here, just to understand that if I got you correctly there. Are you saying we must do some form of NPV calculation to see the contribution is at least more than R1 million per annum?
No. So I'm saying as part of additional consideration. So that was not required. So our required is to calculate the profitability, and then we calculate our profitability. But in terms of additional consideration, if they say now, like this one, it says discuss key factors that we should consider before we enter, right? And then here they're telling us that they will consider sort of if it's more than 1 million. But I'm saying that in additional consideration, you can then say this is not enough for us to then make that decision. If we have a project, we still need to do an NPV analysis. So as an additional consideration, not you have to do it.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yes. Because that's how we value project, right? So as an additional, because now you're gonna take the whole 5 years, you're gonna take time value into money into account, and then you're gonna get a clear picture rather than just using 1 year.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
But you don't have to do it here, but you can state it as an additional consideration.
Okay, perfect. Good stuff. Thanks.
Sure. Any other question? All right, let's take 6 minutes break. Yo, my breaks are always short, né? Let's take a 6 minutes break. So we're gonna come back 2033. I'm gonna leave this here. So if you want to then be just going through it, you can be going through it as well. If you didn't go, you guys can see, né? If I put it like this, can you see? So I'm gonna leave it like, I'm gonna leave it like this. So let's come back 2033 and then we can then continue. Thanks.